This video details the individual boards in the HolidayCoro Flex expansion system, and also we'll cover the CPUs, the Evolution and Hinkspix Pro. And we're also going to show what's inside each box. So let's go ahead and get started here. The first box we have is a 16-port SPI box. And so in there, we have our expansion cable. Now this expansion cable has 4 positions. So one is for the CPU, and then the other 3 are dependent upon whether you have a 1, 2, or 3 level board system. And those can just be cut. We have a video on how to do that. All right, next on our list here, we have the hardware. And you can see there's a lot of hardware in here. And all that hardware allows you for either a 30 or 40 millimeter gap between the boards. So when you're stacking your boards up, you may want additional space between them, especially if you're stacking multiple 16 SPI boards on top of each other. Now, I should also mention that on the 16-port SPI board, we have 6 holes right here and here. So 2 are in the very far back in the middle, and that's for mounting the CPU. So whenever we have a CPU, we support it like this. Now, if you have here, we also have for supporting boards above it. So if you have a board that is cantilevered up and above that, you can stack 3 SPI boards, and when you push on these, it won't have a problem. Now, of course, you get the board itself, and let's just show you some of the features on that board. So, on the board itself, we have 5 amp fuses for each of the outputs. Those also have LED status indicators for fuse blown. So, all of these will light up red if the fuse is working. If the fuse is not working, the light will go out. You can see that they're all very clearly indicated as to the output. You're easily able to get your fingers in and around these plugs because they're properly spaced here. We have a power LED in the corner that shows that you are receiving power. Power can be from 5 through 24 volts, and this is broken into 2 different banks, 1 through 8 and 9 through 16. We also have nice, good, heavy-duty screw terminals over here so that you can use regular wires, or you can use, if you would like, terminated wires, such as with spade terminals. Now, up here we have our outputs, and we also have our polymetric fuses, so you'll notice that there are no output chips that normally are on these boards. This is because we have fuses that are self-resetting, so you don't have to worry about blowing an output chip on that. Also on here are temperature and voltage sensors, so you can measure the temperature on each individual expansion board, SPI expansion board. Okay, now these all have 4-port removable Phoenix style connectors, and they support up to 4 wire pixels. Okay, so that's our first SPI expansion board here. Now let's take a look at our next one here. We have a 4-port long-range expansion board here, and in here we have our spacer. Now this is 30 millimeters because with our long-range expansion board, when we stack these together, we don't need much space between them because our plugs are coming in here at an angle. As where with our SPI board, we tend to have cables coming out and they need to go around, and especially if you have them stacked on top of each other, you may need a little more space, so hence that's why that comes with 40 also. So this comes with 30, which is more than enough space between them. And of course, it does come with a LED to show your status of power up and screw terminals to power this up. Comes with the expansion cable and of course the board itself here. And when you stack them, you can see you just simply stack them like this, and you're able to get up to 12 long-range outputs. Okay, so now let's see here. Let's see how the output of this goes on to a long-range receiver. So we would have output going from here over a Cat5 cable to a long-range receiver, and that is this item number 95161. And so this will allow this data to transfer from here hundreds of feet, 300-400 feet, over to the long-range receiver. Now, there is no addressing on this. All the addressing is set in the controller and is set here. And so what we have here is an output. So if you want to think of it like this is just a subset of an SPI board, of 16-port SPI. We have 4 outputs here. You'll notice we have 4 here. So 4 times 4, 16. The only difference is that these are all located in one place, typically used on things like a megatree or a matrix, and these are used remotely. This is where you need to take those ports and put them in places like your front yard, a house outline, arches, something in the neighbor's yard, further away from here, because normally most pixels here are going to be connected within 25 feet or less. All right, now this receiver has the Cat5 jack here. It has the fuses. You can see that they're all spaced out so that's easy to reach and pull out and replace those. You don't need to get a pair of pliers or anything because they're real tight. They have blown fuse indicators also, so there's a red light in here that will light up when they are operational. Now, we also have an LED over here that shows that you are receiving power. And this also can be run from anywhere from 5 through 24 volts DC. These have the 4-port Phoenix plugs, but it should be noted that these work with only 3-wire pixels. This does not work with 4-wire pixels. So when you come out, you'll only be able to run 3-wire pixels. Now we also have our screw terminal here. Again, this heavy-duty screw terminal, so you can easily put in large gauge wires and properly screw them down. And across the entire unit, because these each have 5 amp fuses, we have a total of 20 amps of possible power. Okay, so that's our long-range receiver, and this does have optional screws you can purchase with it. It has 3 holes here, and we'll talk about mounting solutions now. How's that? Let's do that. So for this unit, we do have a CG1500 Enclosure style, and this is the mounting plate for that. And this simply mounts onto here. And so you can buy a whole kit, put your 350 watt power supply here, put up to 2 receivers here, and completely build out your unit. So let's take a look at those. This is what you would look like when you've completed your build out. So we have our pigtails with pixels, and our power supply, everything in a nice waterproof enclosure. And this is just showing one 4 output receiver, but of course you could run multiple, and you can run your Cat5 cable down through here. Okay, so that is this mounting board. All right, now mounting your other items, let's talk about that. So how do we mount these SPI and long range boards? Well, let's show you a completed controller. So here we go, we have a completed controller, and this is mounted on our 665 flex expansion board for CG1500, and you can see that they're already perfectly spaced in here. We can get to all the holes at the top up here for mounting it to a wall. We have all the clamps on here. Everything is really nice and clean. The wires are very short, and this allows up to 2 expansion boards. So we can put a SPI as we have here, and we could also do this. This is the beauty of the Flex system, is that it does allow, and we can, it's a little fuzzy, but you can see SPI, a long range expansion board, and the CPU at the top here. And this is all in a CG1500, which is a pretty tight enclosure. So we've got our power supplies and all that, all in this one enclosure, including extra holes here for our long range connections. Okay, that is this board right here, 665, and it's got all the holes drilled for either the long range, and you can stack those up, or SPI here, and you can see that there are holes down here for supporting the cantilevered suction. All right, now If that wasn't enough, you want to go really large, like 32 outputs, that kind of business. No problem. There you go. Same kind of thing. These are the SPI board, and you can see dual PSU. So you can take either a PSU or a power supply unit and mount it flat up against here, flat, or you can put two vertical, so you can drive multiple power supplies onto this. So it is possible to put in 32 ports of SPI across 4 different power supplies, 2 in the unit, 2 external. So very, very versatile. This is item 565. Okay, so we've talked about the expansion boards. Now let's talk about the CPUs, because that's how all these expansion boards, which are really relatively not smart devices, these are just to really turn the power on and off. Let's talk about the devices themselves. So we have 2 CPUs. Now this only has the nuts because when we mount our controllers, we have these standoffs, and they have a male on one end and a female on the other end. And so when we are coming up to the top, we'll have the male end facing up, and that nut will go through the CPU. All right, so we have just nuts for that. Your spacers would be from the other boards. And here is our CPU. Now in this particular case, we have a Hinks Pro. Now this is the more advanced controller. Its main advantage is going to be standalone operation. So it has wireless, it has an SD card, it has a battery for playback and scheduling, it has FM hookup, it has audio output, it's got everything. It's a Cadillac, might even say it's even more than that. And so that can be combined with any of those expansion boards. Okay. Now, if you're more budget-minded, or you don't need any of the standalone operation, the audio, all that kind of stuff, you can also get an AlphaPix Evolution controller CPU, and either one of these matches up to all of those expansion boards I just showed you. And it's also got the 3 expansion ports, and it's a more basic controller. It allows all 48 ports to be used, has the same LCD OLED screen with the buttons, and those are interchangeable for ease of repair. And it has the same 2 Ethernet network ports in it, just like the other. It does not have wireless, and it does not have standalone or audio operation. All that needs to be provided outside of this controller. So this is a good budget, simple controller where you're driving it from a player that's external, or possibly even from a Hinks Pro, which is a master, and maybe this is your slave. So that's what's inside the HolidayCoro Flex kits.